Do you think anytime in the future we're going to have the likelihood of a pastor running for president?
Interesting question. I do not know.
What do you think? You think America would be open to that idea? And if yes, what would need to happen for us to get to a point to say, you know what, babe, I don't think it's a bad idea to have a pastor run for president. I think that because, it's kind of like, well, you know what I like about Trump? I like the fact that he's a business guy. Well, you know what I like about him? I like the fact that because, Barack Obama, I like him because, you know what I like about Bush? You know what I like about this? We are able to convince ourselves. Do you think we'll get to a point where we'll say, you know what I like about him? Man of faith, he's preaching. Probably we need a little bit of God today in America. Yeah, I'll give him a shot one time. Will we get there?
I don't know. Maybe. Everybody has a worldview, though. And so whenever anybody says to me, well, we're not allowed to have our religion influence our politics, I agree, separation of church and state, which I'm very grateful for, but everybody has a worldview, and our worldview determines who we're going to vote for, what are our important issues, what are our priorities. So every atheist, every agnostic, every Christian, every Muslim, every Buddhist has a view of reality that deeply impacts the way they're going to vote, the way they're going to order their lives.
What's more likely? Is it more likely for America to vote for a politician who was a congressman or woman, senator, maybe even a governor that eventually chooses to run for office as a president, but they're a Muslim? Or is it more likely to have somebody that runs for office that's a full-time preacher, pastor of a church, Christian? Which of those two things is more likely?
Well, because of where our country's been headed, I really can't answer that question. There's been such a rise in secularism. There has been so much anti-Christian bias that it's hard to figure out what people are going to exactly do. But I'm praying that we're going to have a revival of faith in Christ in this country. I'm convinced that the ultimate solution to America's problems is not the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. Rather, it's the kingdom of God. I think America is great when America follows Jesus Christ, and America turns ugly fast when we depart from Jesus Christ.
Why do you think we departed? Why and when? Why do you think we departed?
I was preaching in a Korean church in Dallas, Texas a few years ago, and Korean believers are very intense usually. They have the largest missions movement outside the United States of any country. And after I preached there, I had lunch with a bunch of the leaders of that Korean church, and I said, guys, I am so impressed with the vibrant Christian faith in Korea. Mm-hmm. They said, well, don't be too impressed because it's really cooling off. I said, why? And they said, for the same reason the church here in the United States is cooling off, materialism. If you have all the money you need, you don't need God. And that's why Jesus said, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Why? Because I think money feeds my ego, my pride, feeds my self-sufficiency, my feeling of autonomy. And I don't need you. I don't need God. I don't need anybody. I'm a self-sufficient, autonomous, all-American. And that's a very dangerous path to walk down spiritually. I'm afraid that our culture has gone down that path, and therefore God is irrelevant, and science and money, that's the way we're going to go.
Yeah, and I think Billy Graham was it, right? When he preached in Korea, 1.5 million people showed up, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Right? I mean,
that's
it's one of the most fascinating pictures to look at.
Yep.
If you can pull this up, Rob, which one? That's it. Look at that. That's insane.
That's it.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're saying money as one. Do you think that's the only reason? Because, all right, maybe when would you say it was a time where our faith in Jesus was something where, a president maybe even would get up and be thankful and maybe even pray. And it was an open discussion where we were comfortable with it and we were praying in school. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a big deal to pray in school, maybe even take Bibles to school. We would even read from it sometimes. When did that stop and why? Because I know you're saying materialism. I get that. But materialism is on the other end of those who defend the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the values and principles that this country was founded on, right? One has to agree to make it secular. Who was that? When did it happen? What was the reasoning why we shifted away from God?
Well, after speaking on campuses for 42 years, what I have observed is a growth in moral relativism. And that growth in moral relativism has gotten to the point today where choice is often God. And don't you dare tell me what I'm going to choose. My choice is my business, and choice is God. And that defines then, it misdefines freedom as being, I do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. And don't you or God or anybody else tell me what to do, because that's the antithesis of freedom. So there's a misdefinition of freedom, and yet it's very attractive to me as a human being, because I love to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And God, I don't want you telling me what to do. I want to determine that.
So, okay, so we got materialism as one.
Mm-hmm.
You got choice is our God.
Mm-hmm.
I get to do whatever I get to do. You don't tell me anything. It's my choice. And, how much of that is, phases that a kid goes through where they become a teenager and they're kind of like, don't tell me what to do. I know what I'm doing. You know what? I realize, Dad, you don't know what you're talking about. All you care about is this and all these things that you have. And then eventually, 10 years later, it's that 3 phases of father-son relationship goes through where you first idolize, then you demonize, then you humanize. And you're like, what? My dad is a human being like me. Shit, I actually like this guy. My God, I've been pretty bad to the guy the last 10 or 15 years, right? Do you think a population or a generation is going through that where they're convincing everybody else that they're right because there's so many of them and they have access to this tool called social media that everybody else is saying, if this person here, this 16-year-old kid got 17 million views, she must know more than I do about God and she must be right. Do you think it's the rebellious phase we're going through where it's just a phase? Or do you think this could be permanent and it's a direction we'll end up staying at?
Well, I pray we're not going to stay there.
Okay.
But relativism has definitely grown. And the illustration I often use is, if the professor at the beginning of a semester says to the students, you're going to be taking tests and I'm going to be grading these tests. And then he pauses and says, but wait a second, do you think truth is relative? And everybody raises their hand and says, oh yes, truth is relative. And he says, fine, when I grade your tests, I'm going to grade them according to height. And everyone goes, whoa. And he says, the tall people are going to get the Fs and the shortest people are going to get As. And everyone erupts by saying, oh, that's not fair. That's not fair. He says, wait a second. You told me everything's relative. If everything's relative, there's no such thing as fairness as an objective value. It's all relative. Well, it's that type of thinking that people have adopted. You can't live it out. Because if everything is relative, then the pedophile and the victim of the pedophile are equal. And there's really no difference because it's all relative. We can't live that out. So hopefully at some point we're going to realize, because we have consciences and rational minds, this moral relativism that we've bought is bankrupt and it's leading to total chaos. I'm not surprised by what's going on in Washington, D.C. I'm not surprised by the animosity in our culture today. It's a logical result of relativism. If you and I are just hunks of primordial slime evolved to a higher order, then I can denigrate you because you had the audacity to disagree with me, and my opinion is king. So it makes a lot of sense where we are now, unfortunately. I root so much of it in moral relativism. And I'm sorry, the 10 Commandments are not the 10 suggestions. They're God saying, I'm sorry, human beings have innate value, so you don't lie to people. You don't steal their property. You don't murder them. You don't covet what they have. Instead, you learn to thank God for what they have, and you thank God for what you have.
Do you know the last time we introduced this hat, what happened to it? Within seconds, it sold out. We ordered 1,000 of these. Like this, it was gone, and we got hundreds of emails saying, hey, I won one of these. Can you please put it back up again for us to order? So this is what we're doing just to prepare on what's going to happen. Because the Olympics are about to start, and because those of you who watch this podcast love America, this hat says USA on the front of it. If you're proud American, you love America, sport this hat. On the site, it says Future Looks Bright. On the back, it says Valuetainment. On the side, it's got the American flag. And on the lid, it says the future looks bright. Never have we had a merch that sold out as fast as this. So here's what we're doing. That's the QR code. You go out there. We have a special USA gear, Team USA gear that is here on vtmerch.com. I'm telling you right now, when you go there, it's going to tell you on back order, but it's going to be first come, first serve because we're ordering. There's some amount that's going to go out immediately, but some of it's going to be on back order. The shirts, the hats, highly, highly recommend during this season, the next 3 to 4 months. When you go to work, maybe you don't want to feel like you want to wear some other hats, but maybe you're comfortable wearing a Team USA hat. Sport this gear when you're going to work, when you're going out over the weekend. Let people know you're proud to be an American. We got the gear here for you. A bunch of different things. If you can zoom in on a couple of those shirts when you order it, it says USA on the front, and it says Future Looks Bright on the back, and it's got the American flag on it as well. So again, go to vtmerch.com, place your order. Don't be one of the ones that hesitates. Order 2, 3 for your friends, your family, your peers. There's even gear for women. The last time we had some female gear that we announced, women's gear we announced, it actually went very quickly. I got a bunch of pictures as well of people. When you get this gear, sport it, tag us. We share it on the podcast while we're going through it. So again, do your thing.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.